What's up, guys? So today's going to be a sweet episode. We're finally diving into the performance parts of this build. I'm tired of doing cosmetic stuff, obviously, but I'm finally ready to make the car reliable and perform a lot better and fix some of the issues I've been waiting to fix. This episode is kind of late. I was planning on doing this a little bit earlier, but I was waiting for parts to come in. You know how that goes. So just gonna dive right into it, show you what I got, what's gonna go on in this episode, and why I'm doing it. So hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so I've already opened this up to glance at it, but I'll open it up with you guys as well. Piece of styrofoam. Boom. Alright, so as you can tell, this is an ISR turbo. This is their T25/T28 hybrid kind of turbo. It's basically just a replacement turbo for the stock T25. So I'm going to show you why I'm going to be replacing this, because my turbo is not blown, but it has a lot of issues that I just felt it was easier to buy a whole new turbo, just replace it, and just have good known reliability all season for my turbo. These aren't rated the best turbos in the world, but I've actually heard pretty good reviews about them. They're an awesome replacement turbo. They're not very good when pushed to the limits, but it should be perfect for my application this season. And last but not least, this box, we have all the correct gaskets, like all of them. I also bought their GT drain. Let's see here, what is this called? GT oil drain flange. It's almost recommended for this turbo. And then I also bought their turbo extension, or I would call this a downpipe, but I think SRs have another downpipe. I'm not really sure what they call this, but it's basically where you put the O2 right off the back of the turbo. So let's get to it. Alright, so the main problem I was having with my turbo, it's going to be kind of hard to see. Let me see if I can set up my camera correctly. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Maybe. Basically, all the studs off the back of the turbo that would connect the downpipe to it are actually broken off inside the turbo housing. So I didn't feel like taking a 20-year-old turbo to a shop and having them extract all the studs. I just felt like it was easier and safer just to replace everything down here. And I think I'm also going to be going back to the stock manifold. A stock manifold can easily push well over 350 to the wheels, and this creates a lot of heat. It's been boiling my brake fluid, and it's also covered in oil from the previous owner because of poor choice for oil catch can. But first things first, I'm going to take off the hood. Get the strut bar out of the way, just kind of clear up some areas so I have a lot of room to work with. Now that the hood and the strut bar is out of the way, I'm going to remove the intake, the intake and the intercooler piping, just to get more access and more room to that manifold. A really good tip I always do is make sure to label everything as you go. Like this vacuum line here, if I can get it to focus, possibly. Close up. Anyways, this plugs into the blow-off valve, so I simply just label it blow-off valve. Don't be ever afraid to label anything, because I forget like crazy, so that's actually pretty decent. So now you know that's blow-off valve, and then there's another one here that goes to the wastegate that I'm also going to label. Alright, so I think I've got most of the stuff up top taken off I can get to before going to the bottom and then coming back up. So I'm going to put the car up on jack stands because I have to get underneath it to get the bolts off the bottom of the downpipe. You probably can't see that, but I got to get those bolts off so I can remove the manifold and leave the rest of the exhaust alone. So I'm going to jack up the car. You guys probably seen that plenty of times though, so it's going to be jacked up right about now. Alright, so the car's jacked up. I'm actually going to drain the coolant now because the coolant line for the turbo is actually going to constantly leak if I don't. I'm going to try and save it in my coolant jugs over there. If not, no big deal, I can buy new. What else I got to do? I haven't decided yet. I might do some research whether you take the lines, like the oil feed lines, out off at the block and then pull it with the turbo, or take them off the turbo and leave the lines behind on the block. They both look like a big pain in the ass to get to, so be looking more into that and how to do that. First we're going to drain that coolant, and then we'll continue on taking off that downpipe and the extension. Well, that was a massive fail. I put a towel down, but you guys gotta check out this. It's crazy. 1 second, let me get underneath the car here. So here's the bottom of the car. Here is the, I don't know what they call this pipe, the mid pipe maybe. It's from the down pipe to the cat. I believe that's what that's called. But basically, missing a bolt here. Now, take note, I haven't touched anything down here yet. Missing a bolt here. That bolt is like backed almost all the way out. And this one over here is, wow, that one's actually there, but it's actually a stud with a nut instead of a bolt. So it's actually been swapped and touched. And then if you look up there at the back of the turbo, these bottom two are completely backed out as well. And there's one missing up there and one tight. So out of the 5 bolts out of the back of the turbo, 4 of them are basically useless. Alright, so I finally got that pipe out. Took forever. Basically, this is why I couldn't take off this pipe. All these studs are actually stuck in here. I wanted it out of the car so I could work on it. Next, I'm going to take off this oxygen sensor and just make sure it works with my new downpipe. Because there's 2 different types of oxygen sensors for SRs. They call them skinny and large. I think this one's a skinny. But I noticed there's actually like an adapter almost, so I'm going to see if I can take that off as well if it doesn't work as it is sitting now with the new downpipe. So I'm going to try that out. So I actually had to pull out that adapter here that came off the old downpipe that adapts it to a skinny O2 sensor. So now that that's in there, now you can take your skinny O2 sensor and voila, you get the idea. I'm going to clean up these threads so they're not all rusty and get that put together. Alright, so next and probably the last thing underneath is this oil drain here for the turbo. So it's just a single hose clamp. I can pull that off. Alright guys, so last thing on the list to get the turbo ready to come out is these oil lines and feed lines, and there's one coolant line. But I'm just going to time lapse those because it is going to take some time for me to figure out which side to take off is going to be best for me. So yeah. Alright, so I've got all the turbo lines off here. They're all just like hanging out. That's power steering. I've got all the turbo lines hanging off here. There is one, the other coolant line on like this side of the turbo is nearly impossible to get to. I kind of broke it loose with the wrench a little bit from underneath, and then it actually wraps around the head here. but it's so hard to get to. And basically, you're gonna take the manifold off with the turbo, and then as I pull it off, just kind of let it sit here, and then loosen it from there. That way, I just have good leverage on it. I don't strip anything. I hope that plan works. So we're basically ready to take the manifold off then and get this out of the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and start breaking all these bolts loose. Hopefully we don't break any studs in the head. We shouldn't, because this has been touched before. This isn't the stock manifold. It's not, 20 years being frozen on there. It's this manifold's been recently put on by a previous owner. So hopefully everything goes pretty smooth. So let's get to it. Alright guys, so the turbo's out. Kind of at a standstill though, because I'm actually waiting in the mail for an intake manifold gasket. I actually forgot to order it with all this other stuff. So I will take the time now to actually clean up the parts. I'm going to end up swapping the turbo over to what manifold I choose to run. I'm not sure if I want to run the stock manifold yet or this ISR one. I've heard the ISR ones crack, and I just don't want to take that chance, especially midway through the season. But I also like the look of it, but I do like the sound of a stock SR manifold. It makes that really deep SR sound. I really enjoy that. So I'm gonna do some deciding, kind of do some more research on that manifold, and we'll go from there. You don't have to be too quiet. I don't care. You can ripstick. Look at my brother ripsticking you. Do a sweet drift. Anyways. So I've decided to go with the stock manifold. Main reason is makes a better sound. It's not gonna crack. It's easier to put the bolts on, so it's not gonna be a pain in the ass. I think you can even put the downpipe on and still slide it between the brake master cylinder and the head. And I'm also gonna clean it up, and I bought this paint that's made for headers. It says flame proof. It says like up to like 2,000 degrees, so we'll try that out. But anyways, I already cleaned it up, so I'm just going to shoot a coat of paint on it and then start putting all the stuff on the turbo manifold. Alright guys, so it's the next day. Nothing really changed. I ended up not going out of zone. I found some heater hose I had laying around. I think it should be good enough. As long as I heat wrap it, I shouldn't have any problems with it. And I let the manifold dry overnight. The paint looks pretty good. I'll show you guys that right now. Looks like it came out pretty good. It dried like a nice flat black, way better than the rusty crap it was before. So now I'm just gonna start piecing together the turbo, start putting the manifold on. Putting the gaskets in between. Motor wise, all I gotta do that's left is a few studs came out of the head when I was taking off the older manifold. So I'm gonna have to take those nuts off those studs and put the stud back in the block. No big deal, didn't strip out, they just actually came out of the block. So yeah, let's get to it. Alright, so I've got everything on the turbo ready to go. Things I've done off camera is put this little inlet on. I've put the downpipe on, but I've also put the studs in the bottom. I'm going to have to cut the studs off that pipe because they're actually frozen in there. I've got the manifold on, all the turbo lines. These are ISR oil lines and stuff. They're all on there. Oil feed is down in there. Another thing I've done off camera is put some studs back in the block. They actually came out when I took the manifold off, so no big deal. I just chased them with, what is it at? Just chased them with a tap and put the studs back in, so everything's pretty flawed now, or everything's pretty good and ready to go. Since everything's pretty set up, I think I'm just going to throw the manifold on and kind of do like a time-lapse video. It's basically just a reverse of how it came off. If I run into any kind of snags, I'll stop and show you guys where I'm at. But it should be pretty straightforward, so I'm going to throw the manifold back on and get all the lines back on and get ready to start this beast. Alright guys, so it's been it's probably been a full 24 hours since the last clip. Basically what happened is I put it all together and I just started up real quick off camera to make sure I wasn't gonna have like a huge fire. And what ended up happening was the turbo was like puking oil, like puking it. And actually I've been working on it today. I had to take off the turbo probably like 2 or 3 more times. I mean, like, I've never done this before, so obviously I'm just kind of trial and erroring it through, but basically what happened was, here I'll show you real quick. This restrictor that was on this restrictor right here, it's just like an AN fitting style that was like, I don't know, it's probably hard to see, but basically it was like right there. What happened though is with the new turbo, it came with a banjo style, so like a bolt with a hole through it, and then like a fitting around that. And I wasn't aware that I had to use it. There's actually instructions right here that I didn't see. They're at the bottom of the box. It said right here, disregard the 1/8 NPT to -3 fitting from aftermarket turbo lines, which is what this is. So don't use those. Just go straight from your stainless steel line that you buy for this kit, and then go straight to this ring that goes on the banjo bolt. So here's that banjo bolt I was talking about. So yeah, I started up real quick. I didn't see any oil like leaking over the floor. You can tell I had a little spill. That's all the oil that came out when I was running for like maybe 30 seconds, so it's a really bad leak. So let's throw some coolant in it. Let's get this thing running, and I'll show you what it sounds like. It sounds like really sweet with the open downpipe, but it's crazy loud, so I am gonna end up putting the whole exhaust back on. The other thing I'm worried about too is what the actual wastegate actuator is set at, boost-wise. I'm only looking to run maybe 10 pounds. I'm on stock injectors still, which are 370 cc's. I am running a Walbaro 255 fuel pump, which I can run more boost with that. But I don't want to put the injectors at like 100% duty cycle, or like running the injectors like maxed out. It just makes the car unreliable. I just want to run like a nice safe tune that I can just run the track all day, not have to worry about it, and just rip it. But enough rambling, let's throw some coolant in the car and get this thing going. I have no idea if you can hear me or not, but this thing's crazy loud. Alright, so I've got the car down on the ground. I think all the coolant's bled out of it. Obviously, we might do a second check later. But I'm going to go for a quick drive around the block. I won't record this because it's probably pretty boring. I'm just going to do like 10 laps around my block. Just make sure nothing crazy is going to happen before I actually put it out on the street. You know, make sure I'm not melting oil lines or melting cool lines. Everything seems to be okay right now. It's actually been idling actually better, probably because there's no leak at the O2 sensor. And yeah, and it's also running a little, like about just as cool as it was. So I put new fresh coolant in. The old stuff was gross. So I'm gonna go around the block a couple times. Make sure to always bring tools with you, and then I'll be back, and either I'll be broke down or it's gonna run great. So there goes nothing. All right, guys. So I just got back from my first cruise around the block. I did go down the street too as well. I did get in the boost a little bit. It's actually at 13 pounds, I think, 14 pounds right now. That's kind of like right at the limit for me. I'm actually gonna adjust it a little bit. I'm gonna try and get it around 10, 11, kind of where it was before. To adjust boost without a boost controller or electronic boost controller, basically you're gonna have to pull this, see if I can get that to focus, this clip right here, weird looking clip off the wastegate actuator on the back. I don't know if you can see that. Let me zoom in here for a second. Alright, so you can see where there is a clip on the end, and now that can actually pop off, and there's a little locking nut there. And I'm going to make it longer because it's going to have less tension on it. The shorter you make it, the more boost you're going to run. Sorry about that. So the shorter you make it, the more boost you're going to run. And I'm probably going to do like 5 turns at a time probably, and then try and get it down to 10 psi. This method kind of sucks, lowering the boost. The best method would actually just to be set this at your lowest and use a boost controller to bring it back up. But I don't want to run. I'm not saying I don't want to run. I just don't have it right now. I just don't want to overboost my car. So I'm just gonna set that to 10 psi, and then it shouldn't boost spike or anything, because that is, if you had a stock car, that's all that controls boost is your wastegate. So